No, no, and no.
Garrett barked, slamming his fist down onto the table. He wasn't usually a violent individual, and this was his first time expressing physical anger for quite some time. He had good reason for it. What was Barso thinking? The thief had always made it very clear that he worked alone, yet over the past few years, Barso had gotten the crazy idea into his head that Garrett needed a partner. With things only growing worse within the city, more and more rogues had found themselves in the shady man's services, and quite often, the seasoned Garrett was requested to team up with them in order to take in bigger and more risky hauls. It was becoming more than a slight annoyance at this point. Garrett was more than capable of flying solo. He always had been.
Come on, Garrett, for old time's sake.
The thief turned around. His eyes flashed in silent ferocity.
I said no.
He replied, very calmly. Barso exhaled a deep sigh, and spat a wad of chew into a nearby crate.
You know, Garrett, this girl may be the key to your biggest heist yet.
Oh? And why is that?
He asked, unimpressed.
Because she's a Simmons.
Garrett's expression went from nonchalant to utterly speechless. He stared at Barso with genuine confusion.
Why the hell would a Simmons want to work with you? Anyway, Basso, are you insane? What if she rats you out? What if she rats me out?
Relax, Garrett. The gal's a responsibility-dodging scamp. She told me all she wants is her freedom. No noble would ever talk like that, because no noble would ever use their brains to ponder what they might be giving up for all that gold. I'm sorry, but in my eyes, that shows possibility.
It shows that you made an even bigger mistake than usual, old man. I'm not training her. If she wants to steal things, let her do so on her own time, by herself.
The thief huffed and started for the door. Barso hesitated. He didn't want to hurt his mate, but he also knew that cunning manipulation might be the only way to win the day. He decided to take that gamble.
Is it because of what happened with Aaron?
Garrett stopped cold. His fingers tensed into uncomfortable curls. He softly lowered his head. Erin. She had been as broken as a discarded doll when he found her, on that frigid autumn's eve. To this day, he couldn't be sure what it was that had made him take pity on the girl, but perhaps it had been the hopeless memories of his own childhood. Garrett could still hear her frightened whimpers as she gawked up at the tall dark man standing over her. He could still feel her clammy, tiny fingers as she reached up and took his beckoning hand. He had trained her to steal, taken her under his wing as his one and only protégé. That child. His child. The closest thing the lone man would ever have to a family. And now she was dead. Because of him.
Basso, you said that you wouldn't speak of that anymore.
I only bring it up because after what happened last year, you haven't been the same. Your passion for the job is gone. It's as if you're emotionally driven now. I'm starting to worry about you.
He offered.
Is that why you keep pairing me up with these no-names? You think I'm in need of friends? Someone to buy me a pint?
Garrett scoffed. Barso didn't miss a beat.
Are you?
Garrett didn't offer a witty response this time.
What happened that night? Erin was headstrong, sure. She didn't listen to you worth a damn, but that was kind of expected given her age. But the whole thing just seems so odd.
Barso pondered. The thief curled his fingers tighter, forming a fist. He held them like that for several moments, before releasing them with a defeated sigh.
I don't want to talk about it.
I was just trying to help. Speaking of which, maybe this will help persuade you to train Guinevere.
With that, Basso threw a large, bulging coin purse in Garrett's direction. It landed squarely at his feet. The thief took a moment to study the sack, before picking it up. He didn't know which was more unbelievable: how much faith Basso had in this new girl, or how much he was paying him. Garrett tucked the coins away within the flap of his cloak. With a snarl, he locked eyes with his contact.
Fine. I'll train her. Stay out of my business from now on,
he retorted, and rushed out the door. Guinevere waited in the darkness. Basso had sent for her, informing her of when and where this Garrett would meet her. She was growing nervous. What kind of man would she be dealing with, and furthermore, would he really be able to train her? There was so much uncertainty now, so much fear. Guinevere's future now lay in two distinct directions: forward, into the life of a wily thief and vigilante, or down, into the cruel and unending torments of the destitute. Either was a very real possibility, because she could never go back home. Not after what she had done.
So you're the girl Basso's in a fuss over.
A smoky voice rang from behind her. Guinevere jumped, and spun around. Before her stood a tall figure, draped in a light black hood. Stunning eyes flashed from beyond. Guinevere gasped. This man had two eye colors. His left eye was a light brown, while his right was an inferno of silvery blue. The young woman had never seen such eyes before, and they fascinated her.
You're not very adept to your surroundings, if you didn't even hear me coming.
Are you Garrett?
She gasped, voice barely above a whisper.
What if I'm not? How would you know the difference?
The thief pressed her. He was testing her wits, without her even knowing. Guinevere pondered for a moment, before replying.
I just assumed that because you knew Basso.
Lots of people know Basso, especially around here. That doesn't prove anything.
Then, no. I'm not sure who you are.
Guinevere added meekly.
Lesson 1. Never make unnecessary assumptions. Lesson 2. Never reveal anything unless directly asked. So far I don't see much promise in you, Guinevere.
Garrett remarked with a growl.
You know my name? So then you must be...
She stopped when the thief affixed his firm glare upon her.
I mean, yes, I'm Guinevere. And you are?
Turns out your little assumption was correct. I am Garrett. Before we get started, let me just make myself very clear. I don't give a rat's ass about you. I'm only doing this because the old fool seems to think you have potential. He paid me a ridiculous sum to train you, and I'm not about to say no to that much coin. But from what I've seen of you thus far, Basso wasted his money.
Garrett scoffed, looking the young woman up and down. Guinevere was burnt by his harsh judgment of her, but she wasn't about to give up. She was speechless. The man was staring at her, expecting her to do or say something.
What does he want from me?
Guinevere pondered. She didn't wish to be rude, but the young woman found herself having a rather hard time tearing her line of vision from his eyes, especially the metallic glow of the right eye. It seemed so mysterious to her. Guinevere laughed inside. What were these ludicrous thoughts she was having? Eyes were eyes. There was nothing mysterious or unexplained about them. She tried desperately to shake such fooleries away, but they just wouldn't go. His eyes now held her. Garrett cleared his throat, startling her.
Care to tell me how a Simmons gets involved with a lowlife such as Basso?
Oh, you heard about that, huh?
You can be assured that everyone down here has heard about that by now. You did tell Basso, after all.
The thief leaned forward, his hawk eyes digging deeper into her.
mind telling the only one who's out of the loop here?
I ran away. My parents, they didn't approve of my...
Guinevere began.
Your what?
The young woman looked downward. She watched as a cockroach weaved in and out of the cracks in the cobblestone. Though she did not look up again, she knew that Garrett was still watching her, waiting for an answer. Guinevere took a deep breath and focused her mind. She began to relax. Her heart rate began to plummet, her skin grew supple and moist. The sound around her began to fade. She could hear Garrett continuing to press her, but his voice was now a distant whisper. As she continued to exit reality, she felt the finale upon her. Her senses were confirmed when she heard the thief exclaim. His confusion echoed into the far recesses of her mind. Guinevere smiled and opened her eyes. She watched as color and texture began to reknit, forming the darkness of the alleyway she was in. Garrett was before her, looking around anxiously. Guinevere waltzed around to his back, reached out, and withdrew a single arrow from his quiver. Garrett spun around. He had felt the arrow as it slid out, but just who had taken it, he could not be certain, until he saw Guinevere reappear in front of him. She stood with a smug expression on her face, twirling the stolen arrow between her fingers.
Invisibility spell?
She shrugged nonchalantly. The thief fought to hide his astonishment.
Nice trick.
He remarked dryly.
I think I understand now what the old codger sees in you. It's not every day that a mage wants to become a thief.
Guinevere trotted up to him and handed him back his arrow. Garrett took it, gripping the projectile with quiet disdain.
So did I convince you to train me?
She asked, almost afraid of what his answer would be.
Basso's gold did that.
The thief sighed. He pulled down the fabric covering his nose and mouth. The stubble on his elongated face expanded slightly as his lips curved into a slight grin.
But now I know